Weird way to start a video like this, but for years, I just didn't get the appeal of an e-bike. As a guy who didn't get much exercise, bicycles were one of the few ways I could work out, and an electric bike sounded like it would take that exercise away from me. But as more electric options started to creep into the Citi Bike stands surrounding my South Brooklyn home, I started to understand that e-bikes don't eliminate exercise. They just let you choose how much work you want to do. So when a company called Velotric invited me to test out a new e-road bike designed for, quote, urban and beyond, I decided to see just how far beyond I could go with a 2-day bike ride from my New York City apartment to my childhood home near the end of Long Island. I'm Michael Fisher, and this is MrMobile's 100-mile review of the Velotric Thunder 1. If you're new to the channel, I've never reviewed a bicycle before. So this video is presented from the perspective of a real novice to both e-bikes and long-distance cycling. Please be kind. In fact, I'm so inexperienced that a friend of the channel, Jaime Rivera of Pocket Now, bet me a Despacito cheeseburger from local bar Brew Inn that I wouldn't even be able to finish the road trip. Stay tuned to the end to see how that worked out for him. And if you're not new to the channel and you're here for your weekly mobile tech fix, don't worry, I carried plenty of tech on my ride, which I will describe in a little bit. The most important tech, of course, is the Velotric Thunder 1 itself. The review bike, in size medium, arrived partially assembled, but it came with all the tools I needed to go from living in a cardboard box to fully built in a little over an hour. It probably would have been longer if it weren't for The Unlocker's David Kogan, who's actually built this bike before. He gave me the pro tip of installing the kickstand way before the instructions said to, and he lent me this clever little air pump from Fantic that fills your tires automatically to your desired pressure, in this case, 60 psi. Fully assembled, it's tough to spot the E in this e-bike. The Thunder 1's 350 watt-hour Samsung battery is hidden entirely within the frame's down tube. Replacing that battery is technically possible, but it's involved. You won't be carrying spare batteries with you to extend your range, and you'll need to charge the bike near a power outlet. That charging takes 6 hours from 0 to 100% via an included 36-volt power adapter that plugs into a port hidden behind a rubber cover down on the bottom of the frame. The 350-watt motor is similarly hidden inside the rear wheel hub. The only telltale of the bike's technological distinctiveness is the control panel on the top tube, which includes a battery meter, fingerprint scanner, and a 6-color ring light to display how much assistance you've set the bike to provide while you pedal. You control that power level with a simple set of buttons on the left handlebar, directly opposite the 8-speed gear shift on the right, topped off with a toggle for the LED headlight, which draws its power from the onboard battery. The included rear light has its own battery you gotta worry about separately, which is a bummer. And the same goes for this dinky bell, which feels about as cheap as it sounds. Like many manufacturers, Velotric offloads a lot of the Thunder 1's smart features to a smartphone. The app was unfinished when I started testing, which was frustrating, but after Velotric pushed an update to the bike's firmware, I had no problems. You use the phone to lock the bike, which doesn't physically lock the wheels, that would have been really cool, but it does disable the motor, and it activates the security system. So if the bike starts moving while it's locked, you'll get an alert on your phone. Thanks to a built-in T-Mobile 4G connection, you can see where it is on a map at all times. You can unlock the bike with your fingerprint or just by walking up to it with your phone, and during a ride you can see things like speed, power setting, and battery level in the same app. Rounding up the Thunder 1, the brakes are hydraulic, the color is frozen blue, and the whole thing weighs in at 36 pounds, which means carrying its aluminum alloy frame up my 3-story walk-up is totally doable.
Woo. Easy for a young man like myself.
You may have noticed I didn't mention a throttle in that hardware tour, and that's because the Thunder 1 is what's known as a Class 1 e-bike. That means its motor, and all its 45 Newton meters of torque, only works when you're pedaling. There's no pushing a button to get a boost while you coast. Just like an analog bike, you need to pedal to get anywhere. And once the battery dies, the bike just reverts to what it was all along, a traditional 8-speed bicycle. I learned all this from David Kogan's videos, by the way. If you want to see some reviews of Class 2 and Class 3 bikes, I will link to his channel in the description. As impressive as the Thunder One is, I knew I needed to make some modifications if it was going to take me 100 miles with a modicum of comfort. To start with, it only took one day of rehearsal riding for me to determine that my particular keister needs more cushion than the included rock-hard saddle could offer. I upgraded to a Giddy Up branded seat that's wider and softer with an integrated taillight.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
But try as I might, I could not figure out how to mount it. Remember, amateur here. Fortunately, I had a friend in the eponymous Frank of Frank's Bike Shop in Brooklyn who swapped the seats for me in about 3 minutes and even special ordered an Arius Infusion helmet in radioactive neon green to match the high-vis vest I picked up on Amazon. Really helpful guy, Frank's Bike Shop in Brooklyn. Look him up. To these accessories, I added a Ranger frame bag from Revelate Designs. It's not as nice looking as some I've seen, but it did its job of moving the weight of some of my cargo off my back. And because I suspected that not even the new seat would be comfy enough after 6 hours of sitting, I upgraded my undergarments. Let me tell you, the ability to buy anything from anywhere, never more mixed a blessing than when you're shopping for gel-padded undercarriage care when drinking a beer at your friend's bar. And of course, that goes double for chamois cream. Just Google it. I'm not going to describe it. Creamed, saddled, packed, and most importantly, charged up. It's time to set off from the city to the country.
Let's hit it.
Velotric says the Thunder One can last up to 70 miles on a full battery. I'm planning an overnight stop to recharge, both the bike and my body, so I set my day one destination as Port Jefferson, New York, a coastal town I chose for its nautical appeal, random memories from my younger days, and the fact that its 63-mile distance should theoretically be just within that 70-mile envelope. I am being conservative with it. To preserve that range, I keep the bike in the city riding mode, the most power efficient, and my goal is to leave it on one of the two lowest power settings, Eco or Tour, for most of the journey. Right away, though, that's a challenge. As a casual cyclist, I know I need to preserve my energy, but I also need quick acceleration when riding through city traffic, on roads I'm sharing with buses and big, scary trucks. So early on, I'm frequently bumping the bike up to normal, sport, even turbo at times. And for a first-timer to this kind of e-bike, the effect is curious at first. See, the Thunder One uses a torque sensor to measure how much force you're applying to the pedals, and it adjusts how much motor assistance it's providing accordingly. At higher power settings, you really feel that goose as the motor kicks in to push you. And it takes a little getting used to, but you really miss it when it's gone. Stay tuned. As downtown Brooklyn recedes behind me, and Crown Heights gives way to Ozone and then Floral Park, to Westbury, Salisbury, Woodbury, and all the buries between, the bike's strengths and weaknesses gradually make themselves apparent. The new tires and aluminum frame prove themselves over and over again as bike lanes come and go, and the shocking neglect of the asphalt in some of these suburban towns makes itself felt.
Here we go. Ow! Ah! Well, how'd you do, Gorilla Glass? Whew. D-Brand just out here saving the day. This is why you gotta lock that holder. Okay. Back on the sidewalk again. Ooh.
Through it all, the Thunder One holds up better than its driver. After a few hours, I begin to feel the effects of the aggressive sporting angle the bike wants me to sit in, and I wished I'd been able to add some rise to the handlebars so I could sit more upright. But nothing falls off, nothing even so much as rattles the wrong way. The bike is solid, and I can't recall hearing its motor even once. It's quiet.
I missed this turn twice because I didn't think it was a real road. Discovery!
As the scenery around me becomes more and more bucolic with each pedal, the whole idea of this trip seems less and less fantastic. Maybe I really can make it.
Mid-ride update. The ride is going well. I've only eaten once, right in the parking lot of this place. Which I always planned to stop at, but I planned to stop here for a coffee stop in the midday. It is 4:30 in the afternoon. Not everything has gone to plan today. But the important thing I wanted to do here was eat, get some calories, which I did. This place is called Kerber's Farm, established 1941. I've never been here before, but I will come back because that was an absolutely delicious mid-ride sandwich. But more importantly, right before I got here, I encountered a hill, one of the only hills on the ride, and really not that bad a one, but it reminded me quite promptly and brutally that I have not trained enough for this expedition, because I was swearing and panting and really just whining most of the way up it, even with electric assist. And this naturally made me curious about how much battery I had left. And when I checked it upon arriving here, the app told me that the Velotric had 9 miles remaining, which would be fine if this were Port Jefferson, my overnight stay location, but that is 25 miles further down the road. So I bought a lot of food here, and with my helmet in hand, I asked the fine people here if I could plug into an outdoor outlet, to which they very graciously agreed. So I'm gonna finish this bottle of water, maybe go in and sample their pie, go back out, and see if I've put 25 miles back in the tank to get me to the halfway point. Update to the update. 1, the pie was very good. 2, I gave the bike a full hour on the charger, and now it says I have just enough to make it. We'll see. 3, I'm not really sure if I trust that range estimate, because just like old phone batteries used to do, sometimes the battery meter is a lot more accurate if you fully deplete the battery first and then recharge it to full. And I have not had the opportunity yet to do that with this bike. And 4, this is obviously not something I had to do. You can very easily ride this bicycle without any motor assist, unless you're me, who's been riding all day and is very tired and frankly just terrified that another one of those dastardly hills is going to show up. And I could not bear the notion of doing the rest of this ride on manual, because my thighs, they are a-burning. Let's get back on the road before we lose the sun, huh? One-day ride. I know what that is. I really hope that's just the onset of night I'm racing and not rain. Why am I flashing already? I got 14 miles left to go. I don't like that. This worries me. There was another hill. Actually, maybe more than one. They really hurt my feelings. Time of death, about 7:05 p.m. Right before a not massive, but still significant enough hill that I decided to take the L and just walk it for a half mile or so, not even, till we hit the crest, because I gotta save some energy for tomorrow. Hi May, if you want to disqualify me based on that, fine, but I'm not eating any damn ramen. I'll explain that at the end.
Yep, it turns out that just like smartphones, laptops, electric cars, pretty much anything with a battery, e-bike endurance estimates are best-case scenarios. On day one, with a mix of city and suburban driving and quite a few hills, it seems the Thunder 1 is more like a 40 to 50-mile bike than a 70-mile one.
Oh, thank God.
Still impressive, but in retrospect, I wish I'd plotted a midway point a little closer to where I started.
Turns out that yes, I was racing a rainstorm, which was not in the forecast. It doesn't matter, because I'm here.
I'm only conscious for long enough in Port Jeff to plug in the bike, shower, stretch, and eat my weight in carbs before passing out with the hopes that I'll wake up to a body that will let me finish the journey tomorrow. Eight and a half hours later, the rain is gone, the bike is recharged, and after another carbo load, so am I. Not that you'd know it to listen to my Garmin, which is well attuned to just how in shape I am not and predictably peeved at my insane overreaching. Oh, speaking of that smartwatch, before we get on the road, I promised a rundown of road trip tech that I brought along. So, real quick, that watch is the Garmin Mark Captain Gen 2 on loan from Garmin. I can't overstate how much I value all the health data Garmin gives me, especially on a ride like this. Months ago, as I started to prepare with Citi Bike rides, this watch taught me how much work I needed to put in, and it's been invaluable for tracking my route and the health effects this trip has had. Up next, the Thunder 1 comes with a simple mount for your phone, but the Captain 2 phone's lifestyle demanded I double up on that. So David Kogan recommended this Lamicall holder, which is good, so long as you remember to lock it. Ow. Oh, and install it right side up.
I just noticed I've been using the Lamicall stand upside down the whole ride. Stupid.
To take my mind off my burning muscles, I also brought along 2 sets of earbuds for podcasts, the Nothing Ear 2 and Pixel Buds Pro. But don't worry, I only wear one bud on one side and always in transparency mode. Speaking of transparency, to keep my phones topped up on the road, I'm using a cable and power pack from Shargeek, which I like because it's not just another anonymous black box of a battery. And it has a display that gives you a bunch of geeky stats while you're charging. And because I didn't want to carry my hefty Sony studio camera for the trip, I relied on a bunch of mobile devices for content capture, as well as, obviously, navigation and communication. My Samsung Galaxy Flip 4 takes center stage, backed up by my Galaxy S23 Ultra review unit on the Lamicall. Additional footage came from the Google Pixel 7a, Galaxy Fold 4, Insta360 Go 2, and a drone. The Skydio 2 Plus, a remarkable aircraft that follows you while avoiding obstacles. As long as you follow the directions before flight and realize that one of the obstacles it doesn't recognize is power lines. One of which it clipped about 500 feet into my road trip review, chopping off a rotor blade and sending it to the pavement with a devastating crunch. This is not on Skydio, folks. This is my bad. You should always read the directions. You should always fly safely. I know this is my fault. I'm glad no one was hurt. At least I got some footage earlier in the week. All right, let's get back to it. With only about 37 miles to cover on day 2, I'm feeling a lot more hopeful, despite the fatigue pervading my muscles. That's because I have a much better handle on the Thunder 1's probable range now, so I can be more generous to myself with the higher power levels that'll make my day a little easier. Also making my day easier, stumbling upon the North Shore Rail Trail, a 10-mile recreational path just outside Port Jeff in the town of Brookhaven that lets me spend almost a third of my day's miles away from cars in the quiet shadow of some transmission lines.
Just walking the bike here for a second so I can talk to you safely. I have never been a trails guy. Obviously, I've never been a real cycler guy, but this North Shore Rail Trail has changed my entire outlook on today. I'm still tired, my legs are still killing me, but not having to fight the traffic, not having to worry about cars or stop signs or any of that, just
having this dedicated miles-long path through, well, people's backyards, but also a lot of nature. It's such a gift. And it's really giving me some of the moments I hoped for when I set out on this trip. Some of these tranquil moments with no one around, just me and, well, the chirping birds. Let's have more rail trails. Certainly more relaxing.
The closer I get to home, the more landmarks I start to recognize. The more familiar becomes the near nothingness that still surrounds the part of the country in which I grew up. And I begin to reflect on the bike rides that seemed long when I was a child. The 3-mile ride between my parents' houses, the 7-mile trek to my friend's place the next town over, the 16 miles my grandfather and I achieved on a particularly ambitious day. And I'm just kind of gobsmacked that 3 decades later, technology has given us a vehicle that can make a journey of 100 miles possible, even for a 40-year-old who didn't train all that much for it.
From Brooklyn to my hometown in 100 miles. You'd think I would have something pithy to say after that, but I'm just happy to be here.
When I finally arrive in the tiny hamlet from which I sprung, the Thunder One is once again nearly depleted after those 37 miles. But this time, that's no surprise. All that luxurious time spent in the sport and turbo modes, that's the only reason I'm anything more than a babbling idiot at this point. And the bike's overall resilience, it mixed in with its reliable brakes and a little bit of luck, I think, is why I'm here at all.
Sounds like I'm dying, but I actually feel great. Which is to say, I feel accomplished. And there's no possible way I could have done this ride on a normal bike, though. So I think it can safely be said, for the record, that my early doubts about e-bikes soundly put to rest.
The Thunder One costs $1 shy of $1,800, which puts it at the higher end of Velotric's offerings, but overall, somewhere in the mid-range of the vast Class 1 e-bike ecosystem. For that kind of money, you'll want to keep in mind the warranty, 2 years, the return policy, 14 days, and the imperfections. Back home, when my dad was busy trying out the Velotric and I rode his analog cycle, I was reminded how much and how often I wished over my 2-day ride for a less severe seating angle, for softer, more comfortable handlebars. And again, if I had tried doing this trip with the saddle that ships with the bike, I think I'd have sterilized myself. I also found myself wishing for more bells and whistles, like the fancy LED-based interface and maybe even the ridiculous alarm system on the Van Moof S5. But a lot of those complaints are just me kind of wishing this was another type of bike. And for a city bike that looks more like a bicycle than anything with an E in the name, a bike with enough assist to get to work without breaking a sweat, or make a long weekend ride more tenable, or just take the pain out of some of those damn hills on your commute, I gotta say, the Thunder One really gets the job done. And even though I have no basis for comparison besides the huge tank-like city bikes I formerly relied upon, it seems to me that Velotric has delivered plenty of bang for the buck here. Hey, Jaime, I take my Despacito sloppy.
Victory burger. Despacito. Cheers. Cheers to you, buddy.
This video was made possible by a Thunder 1 review sample provided by Velotric. Now, you should know, the company did not ask for the bike to be returned, so I will be holding on to this one. But, as always, Velotric did not receive any editorial input or copy approval rights concerning this review, nor did the manufacturer pay anything in exchange for its production. Special thanks again to Frank's Bike Shop in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and Kerber's Farm in Huntington for the expertise and hospitality, respectively. Also, Adam Z. Lane and Jeremy Lister were each very generous with their cycling advice as I prepared to get underway, and The Unlocker taught me almost everything else I know about e-bikes. Please subscribe to his channel and to the MrMobile on YouTube, and hey, let me know in the comments if another e-bike adventure is one you'd like to see from MrMobile. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.